Hey, I'm supposed to be ready. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're coming up already. Until it comes, so please let me know if you're coming. I will soon return that another thing and I always thought that my mother was not doing right. To me when I couldn't leave my yard. And what I know as an adult was that based on the amount of um, drug activity and outright violence that my mother was trying to protect me by keeping me to the yard. And so today I really want to talk about what is nice and what is expected when we're nice, because right after George Floyd, there was a particular board that I joined, and I knew that what they wanted from me was representation. They had no Black people on their board, and the reason why they asked me was because they wanted some white folk. And can y'all let me know if you can hear me, because I was having trouble with sound earlier. They were I'm sorry, they needed some Black people on their board. And when I went to my first board meeting, I don't know how to turn off the race component when I am the only one in the space. I mean, I don't know, but it feels like if I'm the only one in the space and you ask for representation, the reason you're asking for representation is because you want me to give you a lens towards how you can be better to Black people that you serve and to be better in general. Well, in my first meeting, they were sharing all kinds of stats and data and also asking me for money. And I remember saying, kind of as we got closer to the end of the meeting, what do these numbers look like for Black children? And you could feel in the room that something had shifted. And so, I just kind of said to myself, I'm not doing this. I'm not gonna come back. And I'm gonna make the commitment for the dollars I said I was gonna give, but I ain't coming back. And I want to point out that Austin Channing Brown wrote a book called I'm Still Here: Black Dignity in a World for Whiteness. And she has an entire chapter called Nice White People. And I'm pointing that out because my favorite book on this concept of niceness is actually Robin DiAngelo's book. And the reason why is because it goes into detail and lays out from in the way that I learn all the data that supports what I sometimes feel. And so yesterday I was in a meeting, and I was one of two Black people. I'm just going to point out the other one was a guy, and he wouldn't even make eye contact, so there's that. And one of four people of color altogether, and there are dozens of people in this room. The entire panel is white. And when they get introduced, the facilitator says, I appreciate the diversity that is on this panel. Now, yeah, a room can be diverse, even if not racially diverse. I'm the one who's always talking about that racial diversity is not the same as the word diversity. That, diversity does not mean race. That's not what it means. It just means difference. But if you got a room full of diversity, but no racial diversity, there is something that's missing. And when I'm the person who calls that out, one of the things that I couldn't figure out was why do I want to be in this space, and does this somehow mean that I'm not nice if I bring it up? And so here on page 54 in the book Nice Racism: How Progressive White People Perpetuate Racial Harm, what I think is fantastic about this body of work is that we are not talking about overt racist. People want to talk about the shark bites all the time. The person who would, be offended if I touched them, or gonna move when I don't want, if I live in that space, don't want the kid to be by me. That's not what we're talking about. When folks say they want you to be nice as a Black person, here's what they mean. One, don't talk about race at all. Don't cause conflict. And when you talk about race, that feels like conflict. Don't say anything that might upset me or other white people I care about. Don't be direct. Don't tell me what you really think. Tell me I'm a good person. Smile and be friendly. And don't cause me to feel anything other than what I already feel, which is a level of dangerous indifference. And so I wanted to show a video about dangerous indifference today because I think that if Trisha Rojo Bushnell would not have posted about this, in addition to Laura McDonald at More Squared, I wouldn't have known about it. Here's a 30-second clip from, I actually left that event yesterday and went to the protest to support Justice for KCK. So let's see what you think.
The black women and black men in this county through the exoneration of Lamont McIntyre. All right. So in 2017, Lamont was exonerated of a double homicide he didn't commit. Instead, a then detective, Roger Golubski, framed Lamont, who was just 17 years old, when Roger Golubski was called to cover up this murder. Why did that happen? Because Detective Golubski had been sexually abusing black women for over 30 years.
I stayed there for 2.5 hours listening to person after person share how they had either been raped by Roger Golubski, how they had been silenced by the prosecutor who was deemed to as the one who was supposed to prosecute Roger Golubski, or how other police officers had walked out of the room while they were raped by Roger Golubski, or hearing how they were framed for murder and in jail. Lamont McIntyre, in fact, was in jail for over 20 years for a murder he did not commit because Roger Golubski framed him. Not really caring who he was going to get, just making sure that he got somebody. And what I thought was fascinating was that when Miss Ophelia Williams talked about her being raped, and when Lamont McIntyre and her kids, her 14-year-old boys being framed, who are now 38 and serving time in prison for a murder that they could not have committed. And when Lamont McIntyre got on the stage, there was a settledness and smiles and happiness. And I am just moved to tears, not because people do horrible things, but because good people watch, because good people don't care, because we lack the empathy to be able to say, what would I want to happen if it were me? And so I don't know what what necessarily I can do besides sign petitions and go outside and stand in solidarity with people to demand that Golubski go to jail. He is at home right now. Yes, he's on house arrest. But if I am remembering correctly, the reason he is at home is because he has diabetes. And they don't believe him to be a threat to society. I am sure there are plenty of people in prison who are not a threat to society, but because of the crime they committed, they have to be in jail. And is it lacking niceness because I am saying that? And here's what I own and honor. I was looking at my Enneagram. It's a personality instrument today. I'm a 7 with an 8 wing. You don't need to know what that means, except for 7s, their insistence on forward motion has the power to cause other people to feel left behind. I accept that. And I'm also have 8. Your unfiltered boldness has the power to make other people feel small. I accept that. I just learned this week that there was somebody who is upset with me from something that happened 3 years ago because I was encouraging her to move on. But how do you balance standing up for the left out and left behind if you cannot speak truth to power and if you cannot make people ever feel uncomfortable? And this is calling out why I'm feeling guilty about leaving this leadership program that I left yesterday. Because when you're being nice as a white person, here's what they think. They believe that that means they can't possibly be racist. Set me up as the mean black person if I call you on your racism. Smile as a shield against genuine vulnerability. I cannot tell you when people were expressing from the panel yesterday these ideas that we can't fund higher education, that somehow um, the most pressing issue that we're dealing with is a resource constraint issue, when really what's going on in higher education is that now Black women are the most credentialed body ever. And before that happened, we were not offering up predatory loans to students. Before that happened, we were willing to take money from the federal government to subsidize tuition. One of the excuses that I heard yesterday for not being able to take government money to help subsidize tuition was there's so much paperwork, our financial aid office would have to double in size. I'm going to say that one more time. We cannot take resources to help fund tuition because if we did so, our financial aid office would have to double in size. I did not ask this question, but this is the question that came up for me. When you took the payroll protection money, did your financial aid department double in size? When you take SRS funds, does your financial aid double in size? When you take all of the other grant money allotted to higher educational institutions, does your financial aid department double in size? And I think sometimes when I think these things, that I now have gotten to a place where I feel like I'm not being a nice, good old American. And I'm looking around the room at all these other faces trying to see if these people see what I see, if they are aware of the gaps that I see. Not because I think I'm somehow smarter than folks, but because how long are we going to live through this nonsense? Leave me to take the risk and be vulnerable. I'm the one. When I'm being nice as a Black person, what white people expect that they need is they think that it's not fair that I'm not being nice back, right? Like the pressure that extends from the tropes and the vitriol that comes with the sweetest amount of sugar on it. You know, my lovely mother always had these sayings, and one of them was, you just, and listen, I'm about to cuss, so if that bothers you, just skip over this part, that you can't turn shit to sugar, y'all. This week, as we've been talking about presidential elections and political outcomes, I saw headlines that said the Trump era is over. And I'm like, are we talking about the man? Or are we talking about the hatefulness that people felt was okay to express because the man was in a leadership position? Have we learned anything from the time that we said we were in a post-racial America when Barack Obama was elected into office? Sometimes I don't know, but here's what I do know. Every once in a while, I just want to go inside my fence and stay, because outside that gate, it's a whole lot of violence, vitriol, and hatred that smiles at you because it's nice. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got work to do.